Hi there, you guys. This is Jaden here, and in this video, I will be doing a different video idea because I was bored. So, yeah, I decided to make this video that is a double feature video idea. And so the first thing I'll do in this video is do a reaction video for Mr.BeanFan Disney2005. Not that he requested me to do it, it's just something I felt like doing because, again, I was bored and I thought it'd be a good idea. And yeah, after I watch a video from him, I will later do a commentary on this list I did last week that's about what I believe are 10 underrated animated episodes and go more in depth with like what episodes I have on the list and all that stuff. And yeah, I'll do that. But before I do that, I'll do a reaction video from Mr. Bean Fan because again, I felt like it. And I was looking for what's old spoof cast video from him that I could react to. But then I stumbled upon this video that's an old AMV. That's an old music video he did for both Total Drama and Edda and Eddy, and it's with the "I'm a Believer" song. So yeah, I thought why don't I watch that? I mean, yeah, I might get copyright claimed for the "I'm a Believer" song, but maybe I won't. Maybe like my commentary, maybe me talking through the video will be enough to power over the song and prevent the video from getting copyright claimed. And plus, even if it does get copyright claimed, I'm sure it'll just be demonetized and it won't be blocked or anything. Especially since like this original video using the song's already up on YouTube. I thought, why don't I watch this? Since I am a fan of both Total Drama and NNA, both of those shows were on my top 10 animated shows of all time list I did like 2 months ago. And I'm a fan of both of those shows, especially Total Drama. So yeah, watch this. This will be a cool crossover music video. Ah, back when Duncan and Gwen were a couple, way before they broke up in All Stars. And of course, rest in peace, Steve Harwell. God, nostalgia hits hard with this song. I also remember that music video they did for "I'm a Believer" when they, that thing they added on the Shrek DVD where they show us a music video of "I'm a Believer." Yeah, I was kind of wondering when Ed and A was going to be on here. Yeah. Oh yeah, I get it. Because this was back when you had Eddy from Ed and A be Donkey. But way later, you updated that casting choice and made the much better idea of having King from the Owl House be him. But yeah, I do think that's a much better idea, even though I prefer Ed and A over the Owl House. I do agree that it is a better idea. Oh yeah, I get it. So this video was supposed to be a big reference of what your Duncan Shrek project was originally going to be. I did not think about that when I came across this video. All right. Okay. Now that was a cool video, a cool crossover video. That was obviously supposed to be a big reference to what was going to be his Duncan Shrek project. But yeah, I do think it was a good video. Nice crossover between two of my favorite cartoons of all time, Total Drama and Ed, Edd n Eddy. But I do think it could have been better if he had used more clips of Eddy instead of showing this clip of him talking after kicking Double D over and over again. Though to be fair, this video is a few years old, and he did later update his Duncan Shrek cast by having King be Donkey instead of Eddy. So yeah, sure, I'm sure maybe he looked back on this video. Although I am curious to know, Mr. Bean fan, how well this video has held up for you 3 years later. You can tell me in the comment section down below if you want. For me, I think it's pretty cool. As someone who's a fan of both Total Drama and NNA, like I said, a cool thing you did in reference to your old Duncan Shrek project. Like, not the best music video I've seen, but still, it's cool. It's cool for what it is. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give it like a 7 out of 10. And again, if you guys want to watch this video without my commentary, a link to it will be in the description below. And yeah, that's it for the Mr. Bean part of the video. Now let's get on to this part of the video, a commentary of my list of 10 underrated animated episodes. Now, this was a video idea that I had the idea to do in my head for a while, way before I made this video. But I think the reason why I didn't do this video much sooner is because I don't know, maybe it's because there were many times where I was too lazy to think of enough entries for my list of 10 underrated animated episodes. And I do remember that over a couple of years before I did this list, I did do that one video of me talking about me listing 4 animated episodes that I like, that a lot of people hate, and every single episode that's on the list, that's on that list, is on this list, except for uh, the regular show episode that's on here. I had a different regular show episode for this list, whereas for that older list, I had an older regular show episode on there. Yeah, and the reason why I referenced Gem Reviews' list of 10 top 10 underrated episodes of good cartoons right here was because like this video idea of his was pretty much the closest I've found to someone else doing a video idea like this of 10 underrated animated episodes. So yeah, I thought I'd reference that and link that in the description below. And of course, if you guys want to watch the video, link to it is in the description below. Now, episode 46 of Dragon Ball Super. Now, I rewatched this episode lately, last weekend, the same day the new Total Drama Island revival premiered on Cartoon Network, and I still think it's held up really well. And maybe it's aged a little bit worse since I first saw it like over 6 years ago with my older brother Jacob. But I still think it's a great and underrated filler episode. It's fun watching Goku fight the duplicate Vegeta as the real Vegeta's life is on the line, and like seeing him go Super Saiyan Blue and fight the duplicate Vegeta to defeat him with the Kamehameha, and as well as that funny joke of a Vegeta sucking on a pacifier and him not knowing where the pacifier is. All that stuff's funny. Although to be fair, I could see why people would hate this episode because for one thing, it's an anime filler episode like a certain other episode that's on this list. And yeah, it's a fairly hated episode, but I still really enjoy it. And maybe at worst, it's aged like at least a little bit worse since I watched it last weekend. But it's still a great episode. Maybe it doesn't hold up as well as like that other filler in Dragon Ball Z about Goku and Vegeta and Boo's body, but I still think it's held up greatly, and it's still a fun watch. It might still be my favorite episode of Super, actually. King of the Hill, straight as an arrow. Now I put this episode on the list because I haven't really seen that many people talk about this episode, and plus I remember when I checked the IMDb rating for it, it was like a 6 out of 10 rating on IMDb, and I do remember seeing someone put this as a dishonorable mention for their top 10 worst King of the Hill episodes list, and yeah, I could see why people would consider this to be among the best episodes of King of the Hill, but for me, I really like this episode, and if you guys don't remember, I had it at like number 16 on my top 20 favorite King of the Hill episodes video. Yeah, I think it's a really good episode. I can see why it wouldn't be other people's favorites, but for me, I really enjoy this episode. It's fun seeing Bobby in this Cub Scout group with all these kids and seeing like Aeromaster Wesley teach these kids stuff about camping and like the wrong way, not the way Hank would want to teach them. And like the climax is cool with Robin and Carrie gang running off into the woods when they're not supposed to, and Hank and the other Cub Scout kids going out on a little adventure a little journey to get the kids back. That's fun. Overall, a great episode. One of my favorites of King of the Hill. Though I could see why it wouldn't be more popular. Now, next episode on the list, The Amazing World of Gumball, The Limit. Now, I know I'm not the only person who loves this episode. I think I might have seen like 1 or 2 reaction videos. Like I do remember seeing one reaction video of these two guys like watching it off their TV and laughing their asses off at it. And I do remember seeing this episode have a decent rating on IMDb. So yeah, for me saying all that, you might be curious to know why this episode's on the list. Well, it's because I've also seen this episode get pretty heavily hated on as well. Like when people like on people's lists of worst Gumball episodes. And yeah, a lot of people hate this episode because of how mean spirited Nicole acts. But for me, I love this episode. I don't care if Nicole's mean spirited. I mean, yeah, she overreacted in this episode, but to be fair, she did have a good reason to act mean in this episode because she was just trying to go on a nice shopping trip with her family, and her family, including her father Richard, her husband Richard, who should know better, is like fucking misbehaving and you know arguing against her for not giving Gumball, Darwin, and Anais candy. And yet she just wants a nice, decent trip to the store and all that stuff without her family annoying her. She didn't do anything wrong. And her family's like antagonizing her, if that's the right word to use. And come on, like yeah, maybe she overreacted, but she has a good reason to get pissed off. Yeah, sometimes it's natural for us to overreact like that in real life when we get so pissed off with something and we overreact, we act meaner than how we usually are, and we tend to say or do things that we wouldn't normally do. It happens a lot. It's a pretty natural thing in the real world, and sometimes cartoons like embody that. But yeah, for me, this is a great episode, and honestly, this might be controversial, but I think it's a better episode than the Copycats. And yeah, the Copycats is a great episode too. But I think again, I had that episode on my 3 overplayed Gumball episodes list. Yeah, it's a really good episode. It's a great episode. It's funny how they make fun of Miracle Star and all that stuff, but I think it's pretty heavily overplayed. And yeah, I don't want to put it crazy high up on my favorite Gumball episodes list. If I had to choose between this one and the Copycats, I would go with this one. Maybe it's not even the best of the Nicole centric episodes, but I still think it's a great episode. So underrated. Naruto Shippuden, episode 446. Yeah, one of the best episodes Adult Swim aired last year. And I've talked about this episode in multiple other videos before, and yeah, I do think it's a pretty underrated episode. Though I do think it's a fairly hated on filler episode, like episode 46 of Dragon Ball Super is. But for me, I think it's a great episode, and like I showed you guys, I have it downloaded on my laptop, so I can watch it offline on my laptop pretty much anytime I want. And I think it's a great episode. I can see why people wouldn't like it, not just because it's a filler episode, but also because, it's like it's kind of a short final battle between both Naruto and Sasuke, and they do a lot of like rehashing of their fight from part one Naruto with Sasuke grabbing Naruto by his shirt and stabbing him with the Shidori, and they have like they ended off with a nine-toed fox Naruto versus Curse Mark Sasuke Rasengan versus Shidori scene. That's like pretty much exactly how it was in part one, except like Itachi comes in and like Sasuke like stabs Itachi with the Shidori, and Itachi says his last words and all that stuff. And the episode ends the exact same way like that last fight ended, with Sasuke walking in the woods and all that. And another reason why this episode's hated is because of the power scaling mess up of how Sage Mode Naruto was not enough to beat Curse Mark Sasuke. Like realistically, if Naruto went into Sage Mode like this in a fight like this up against Curse Mark Sasuke, as I'm showing in this picture, he would fucking destroy Curse Mark Sasuke. It's no competition. But no, because the Sage Mode has a time limit and Naruto could only use it for like maybe like what 30 seconds of the episode. He loses his Sage Mode, and yeah, he has to fight Sasuke with his full power at best, maybe being his nine-toed fox chakra, and he loses his final battle with Sasuke like he did in part one Naruto. So yeah, I think the power scaling mess up is the main reason why people don't like this episode. Hell, that was the main thing Kai Mazaku, was criticizing the episode for on his video about this episode, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. So yeah, overall, this episode gets fairly hated on. I can see why people wouldn't be that big of fans of this episode. And yeah, sure, it's not as good as the other final battle these two would have like 30 episodes later, but I still think it's a great episode. It's one of the best and most rewatchable episodes of all the Naruto Shippuden episodes Adult Swim's been airing for over this past year. And it's great, although to be fair, yeah, I can understand why it's hated on. It is pretty fairly hated on. Although I still love the episode. One of the best, most rewatchable of all the episodes of Dawson's been airing last year. Regular show, The Unicorns Have Got to Go. Pretty much a similar thing with the Gumball episode that's on here. It has like a decent rating on IMDb, but I've seen like most worst regular show episodes lists include this episode for it being mean spirited and all that. But for me, I love this episode. It's one of my favorites of season one. It's like I for me, it's at least top 5 season 1 episodes of regular show. Maybe not top 10 good, but for me, I love this episode. I love seeing Mordecai and Rigby deal with the unicorns, and like seeing Mordecai and Rigby get into a friendship argument. But like they make up towards the end of the episode, and they like kind of team up against the unicorns, and Benson blows up the unicorns and all that. And I think the unicorns are pretty funny characters, and it's cool how they would later come back in the No Rules episode. Yeah, over great episode, and I don't regret putting this one on the list. And personally, I also prefer it more than that Do Me Solid episode of Regular Show, which is the episode of Regular Show I had on that other list I did over a couple years ago about animated episodes that I like that's heavily hated on. So yeah, there's that too. Total Drama All Stars, Sunday Muddy Sunday. Another one of the most fairly hated on episodes that's on this list. This episode's hated on mainly because of the whole plot hole of how Mike, who was taken over by Mal at the time, was able to get a hold of Courtney's chart, despite the fact that she had just revealed the chart in a confessional she did like maybe like a scene ago. And yeah, how was Mike able to get hold of Courtney's chart that quick and without her knowing too? And yeah, Courtney getting eliminated. And yeah, this episode's fairly hated on since it was written by Ed McDonald, and that little plot hole that's in the episode, and like the stuff they use to get Courtney eliminated and all that stuff. But for me, I think it's a great episode. It's got cool character interactions in it, and it also has some pretty funny confessionals in it too. Like I love that one confessional about Scott claiming he's not afraid of the bear he bumps into the episode, but he was rather just screaming to confuse it. Yeah, man, I love Scott, especially in All Stars. He's even better than All Stars because they made him funnier and all that. Like I said multiple times on the channel. And another confessional I like from this episode is like Courtney telling the story of her working at the ice cream shop. That's great too. Overall, this is a great episode, though I do think it's one of the most fairly hated on episodes that's on this list, but it's still great. Cat Dog, Battle of the Bands. Now, yeah, I put this episode on the list because, like, on IMDb, most of the Cat Dog episodes, at least if I remember correctly, most of the Cat Dog episodes on IMDb have like a 5 or 6 out of 10 rating, and that like saddened me since, as you guys know, I'm a big Cat Dog fan. It's easily S tier for me, and it's like my favorite Nickelodeon show. And you know what? Battle of the Bands might actually be my favorite episode of Cat Dog, although I'm not entirely sure. I love this episode of Cat Dog as it's about a cat and dog signing up for this Battle of the Bands yearbook thing, and I love and cat and dog arguing with each other as they're practicing for this big band thing is pretty funny, as well as the researchers thinking like this Battle of the Bands thing is like a fight type of thing, like a battle type of thing that's not related to music or anything. Yeah, that's pretty funny too. I love this episode, and honestly I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being my favorite cartoon band episode in general. Love it. Next up is the Boating Buddies episode of SpongeBob SquarePants. I've always loved this episode, but people hate it as it's like a Squidward torture episode. And I do remember this episode getting number 6 on Watch Mojo's Top 10 Worst SpongeBob Episodes video. But for me, I've always loved it. Even though Squidward's my favorite character, I do enjoy seeing him. I don't mind the fact that he gets tortured that much in this episode that much. And I do think it's pretty funny seeing him end up in the same school and class as SpongeBob and that struggle with SpongeBob's stupidity and all that stuff. And like all these dumb situations he gets into. Yeah, it's such a great episode. Oh man, like it has got to be like maybe top 5 most underrated episodes. At least I have all the ones on this list. Sorry, wrong Ed and Eddy. Now I remember like over 5 years ago, I saw Gem Reviews do a rant video on this episode, which was the first video on his channel, by the way. I saw him criticize this episode because of how mean spirited it is, and because of how it's not fair for Eddie to get tortured, and Double D acts like an asshole and all that stuff, which is out of character for him. And then after watching that review, I watched this episode off of YouTube, and I didn't think it was bad at all. I thought it was pretty damn funny, but sadly, it's heavily hated on. Like honestly, probably most of the episodes that are on this list are hated on for being mean spirited. And yeah, I really don't like that mean spirited excuse. I think it's so heavily overused, and it's really pissed me off a good number of times. And yeah, it's such an overused excuse. Like most of the time when I see a cartoon episode get hated on, it's because mean spirited, mean spirited. I mean, oh my god, that overused excuse. And I know we all have different opinions and all that stuff, but still, it's really, really annoying. I mean, I'll admit I used to be a softie over the mean spirited thing when I was little, but like now I'm not as nearly as much of a softie about the mean spirited thing as I used to. And even back then, when I was a softie about the mean spirited thing, I would still like excuse cartoons being mean spirited on a lot of circumstances, like Blue from Foster's being mean spirited and all that. And this episode right here, I think it's a great and funny episode. Sure, maybe it's not top 10 Ed and A episodes good, but I think it's such an underrated episode. It's really funny. And I don't blame Watch Mojo for putting this on top 10 on their best Ed and A episodes list. Great episode. It deserves more love. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. I only have surprise for you. Now, this episode doesn't really get us hated on as that other Foster's episode called Everyone Knows It's Bendy, but still, I've seen this one get pretty heavily shitted on. I think it's a heavily underrated episode. It's also pretty heavily hated on for being mean spirited, but for me, I've always loved this episode. And to be honest with you guys, I think this episode might make top 10 Foster's Home episodes for me because it's so funny. I really like the plot of Mac thinking that Blue's throwing him a surprise party, and when they show the flashbacks of Blue embarrassing him, throwing him surprise parties and all that stuff, and the Artie kid, even though he was just Matt Foster in disguise, he was still pretty funny, especially when he does this "I was 4 years old" thing. This is a pretty funny episode. I might make top 10 Foster's episodes for me, although I'm not entirely sure, but I love this episode, and personally I prefer it over Everyone Knows It's Bendy, even though I love that episode as well, and that's a more heavily hated on episode than this episode. I decided to put this episode on the list because, like I said, I like this one more than Everyone Knows It's Bendy. Great episode in my opinion. Definitely one of the most hated on episodes that's on this list. And happy 20-year anniversary to Foster's later this year. But yeah, that's my list, you guys. All great episodes in my opinion, and I would like to see these episodes get more praise. Yep, that's true. I don't take that opinion back. But oh well, opinions are opinions. Yep, that's true. Even though I do tend to often get annoyed by other people's opinions a lot, but still, I still know that we all have different opinions, and we can all, have whatever opinions we want on cartoons and animes. But it's still pretty hard for me to. It's still pretty hard for me to not get upset over other people's opinions. I gotta be honest with that. But I think that's the case for a lot of us, because yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are biased in one way or another. But yeah, me doing my outro. And over a week later, I think that list has held up pretty well. If you guys want to watch this video without my commentary, a link to it will be in the description below, as well as that Mr. Bean video I did a reaction for. And yeah, some links to certain other stuff will be in the description below. If you guys want to, you can let me know in the comment section down below. Maybe which video you like more between this list video I did and that Mr. Bean video I did a reaction for. And yeah, that's it for the video, everybody. Have a good day. Bye, and thank you all for watching the video.